Appreciate that. It includes everybody all across the Navajo Nation. Committee members, we go to the item on announcements. Do we have any announcements? Okay, then let's go to recognizing guests and visiting officials. So the folks on the call, please identify yourselves. And good morning and welcome to the HES regular meeting for April 27th.
Good morning. This is Anthony Danielli from the Department for Self-Reliance here at the BNF conference room.
Good morning. This is Thomas C. Tawiti with the Department of Personnel Management.
Good morning. My name is Stephanie Benali, the Native American Specialist with Utah Foster Care.
Do we have anybody else on the call? Teleconference? I know there's some folks in person at the BNF conference room.
Yeah, this is Delegate Nathaniel Brown. I am online, and I'm glad that Ms. Stephanie Benali is online as my agent as well. I'll be online. Yeah, thank you.
Good morning, Chair.
Oh.
Navajo Davis Filker from Office of the President, Vice President, Executive Staff Assistant. Ito isang list today.
Kushila.
Good morning, Honorable Chair So and HES committee members. This is Jalissa Johnson with OLS Tracking on the call. Good morning to everybody.
Good morning, Shanand. This is Tommy Sosi on the phone from Office of Speaker.
Good morning, Che. How your feelings on the call?
Oh, yeah. Hey, anybody else? Okay.
Good morning.
Nobody. Go ahead.
Good morning, Honorable Speaker Chairman So, and members of the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee. This is Raisita Tati with the Department of Personnel Management. Good morning and thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Yad Bene Shanand Ani This is Tara Klitzo. I am the program supervisor for Kayenta Department for Self-Reliance. Just listening in today. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for all the folks that are on the call. We appreciate your attendance. Miss Angelita Benali, could you provide the review of the agenda? And the
Yes,
committee
Mr.
will
Chair.
adopt.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee. You have your proposed agenda, the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee, 24th Navajo Nation Council, regular meeting, April 27th, 2022. One, presiding are Honorable Daniel E. So, Chairperson, and Honorable Carl R. Sladen, Vice Chairperson. The place is via telecommunications, Window Rock, Navajo Nation, Arizona. One, call meeting to order, roll call, indication, announcements. Two, recognize guests and visiting officials. Three, review and adopt the agenda. Four, reviewing and adopting the journals. One is for March 30th, 2022 and April 13th, 2022. Five is reports, none. Six is new business. Legislation, A is legislation number 0063-22. B is legislation number 0076-22. C is legislation number 0077-22. And D is legislation number 0085-22. E is to schedule a work session with the Department of Personnel Management background investigations. 7, old business, none. 8 is close of meeting, announcements, and adjournment. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Benali. Committee members, what are your thoughts on?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Honorable Edison Wanika, second by Honorable Pernell Halona. Committee members, do we have any additions? Okay. With that, then, Mr. Mose, provide us the roll call.
Yes, sir. Good morning, everyone. Honorable Paul Begay Jr.
Honorable Paul Begay votes green.
Honorable Paul Begay Jr. votes green. Honorable Pernell Halona.
Honorable green.
Pernell Halona votes green. Honorable Carl Russell Slater.
Green.
Honorable Carl Russell Slater votes green. Honorable Charlene So.
I vote green.
Honorable Charlene So votes green. Honorable Edison J. Wanika.
Green.
Honorable Edison J. Wanika votes green. Chair, a vote of 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you. With the vote of 5 in favor, 0 opposed, the chair not voting, we do have an agenda. Then we go to reviewing the Ms. Benali. Please review the next item on the agenda with the committee.
Yes, Mr. Chair. On your agenda, you have number 4, which is the next item, and it's review and adopt the journals. One is for March 30th, 2022, and the second is April 13th, 2022. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Benali. Committee members, how do you wish to proceed on this?
Motion, Halona.
I think I heard Paul Begay's motion first, and then I'll recognize Honorable Halona's second. Committee members, any addition, deletion from those notes? If not, then Mr. Mose, roll call vote, please.
Yes, sir. Honorable Paul Begay Jr.
Delegate Paul Begay votes green.
Honorable Paul Begay Jr. votes green. Al Malona.
All votes green.
Honorable Pernell Malona votes green. Honorable Carl Russell Slater.
Green.
Honorable Carl Russell Slater votes green. Honorable Charlene So.
I vote green.
Honorable Charlene So votes green. Honorable Edison J. Unica. Green. Honorable Edison J. Unica votes green. Chair, a vote of 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you, committee members, for the vote, and let the record show a vote of 5 in favor, 0 opposed. The chair not voting. Ms. Benali, the next agenda item, please.
Yeah, Mr. Chair and members of the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee, your next item is number 5, reports none. Thereafter, it's number 6, new business. A is legislation number 0063-22. And the sponsor is Council Delegate Vince R. James. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Benali. And for the record, has that been read electronically into the record?
Mr. Chair, the legislation does not need to be read into record because it does move on to, I believe, the Budget and Finance Committee. Yes. So the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee will provide a committee report, and the legislation will go on to BNF. Mr. Chair.
Oh. Thank you, Ms. Benali. I finally pulled up that legislation. Thank you. With that, committee members, do we have a motion and a second, and then we'll go to the sponsor?
Motion, Juanita.
Okay, I'll recognize Honorable Edison Wanica's motion to adopt the legislation. Do I hear a second?
Delegate Begay.
So, second by Honorable Paul Begay Jr. Committee members, do we have questions? Otherwise, let me just, as a matter of
Chair, I would like to hear a presentation and ask a question afterwards, please.
I can't answer till by that comment. Then we follow protocol, and our sponsor, Che, Honorable Vince James, are you on the call? Star 6.
That has no name to it. 928 area codes and a few 505s.
First call, Honorable Vince James. Do we have an agent on the call? I sure hate to bypass this legislation. To Miss Angelita Benali, if we push this particular legislation to the side, can we bring it back during this committee meeting? Since our sponsor isn't present.
Yes, you can. You could defer it to later on in this meeting. I'm trying to get Mr. Delegate James's contact information so I can see if he's available. I did send him an email along with a copy of the legislation and the Zoom invite.
Okay. Committee members, I guess because I called it to the table, I have a motion and a second. How do we best proceed? Moving parties, do we just withdraw your motions and then the chair can have the protocol to put it toward the end of the legislations?
I think we let Chair I'll go ahead and
Okay, so moving party, Edison Wanika withdraws his motion. And then, how about you, Honorable Paul Begay, you withdraw your second?
Chair, we'll go ahead and withdraw. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee members, thank you. Appreciate that. Ms. Benali, let's go to item, the second legislation.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chair, the next legislation is B, which is legislation number 0076. And the sponsor is Delegate Mark Freeland, with the co-sponsors being Delegate Raymond Smith Jr. and Delegate Wilson C. Stewart Jr. And I do believe that Delegate Mark Freeland is on the line.
Good morning, I am.
Mr. Chair, you have legislation number 0076-22. And it is an action relating to health, education, and human services, budget and finance, and Navajo committees, and Navajo Nation Council approving $9,910,040 from the unreserved undesignated fund balance UUFB to the Department of Personnel Management for 1,500 appreciation awards, or $1,500 appreciation rewards to Navajo Nation employees for working throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. And the legislation moves on to the Budget and Finance Committee after the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee has considered it. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Benali. I was trying to unmute. Committee members, do we have a motion and a second? Motion by Honorable Edison Wanika. Do I hear a second? Committee members, do we have a second? Okay, second by Honorable Emil Halona. Sounds like you're way in some kind of canyon. Hardly hear.
Yeah, I'm in a canyon, all right. It's called Winter Rock Canyon.
Oh, okay. All right. Let it echo off the gifts then. With that, committee members, do we have a question or a comment? Would you like to hear about the purpose and intent of the legislation? Committee members?
Chair Talona, yes, I do have some questions and comments. Thank you.
Okay. Chair, Honorable Mark Freeland, you have 20 minutes on this teleconference, a hybrid test meeting. Thank you.
Health Education and Human Services Committee colleagues on Senigi. Hello staff, good morning. Shija A. Mark Freeland, Seattle. I don't know Senigi Twitsong, Slowak Kia Ani, A. Bush's Chin. Hello Sanjay Canada, Hello Tana Bethany Edition, I represent 8 chapters out of Eastern Agency, Crown Point, Nahadishki, Vicente, White Rock, Abigail Kaido, Testaigi, White Rock, Herfano Hanas Legi, I don't know the chapters out of there. So today, I present to you along with my agent, Ms. Resita Toddy and Department of Personnel Management, who's assisting with this legislation 0076-22. The intent of this legislation was to help remediate some employee performance and recognize those employees who worked during the pandemic and especially during the shutdown. These last 2 years have been very difficult. Now we're getting out of it, but during the time of the lockdown and during the time of pre-vaccinations, majority of our employees were out there as deemed essential employees, having to work and put a lot of risk and their own health into consideration because they were deemed essential, having to provide services that were essential to our Navajo people. This starts at the most high level of as high as a division director and goes to program manager, and it goes down to supervisor, and it goes down to the office specialist, and it goes down to the PEP workers. The first thought I came up when I first thought of this legislation was our frontline workers and the Navajo police officers. I did get a chance to speak to many of them within the Crown Point district, especially during the lockdown. I did drive around and give out some hand sanitizers to them and PEP when we were kind of short on PEP. The frontline workers, as well as Navajo Nation EMS, Navajo Nation Fire. So thank you to Navajo Nation PD, Navajo Nation police officers, and Navajo Nation EMS. A lot of them said that they were getting calls and going into these unknown situations, and a lot of them did contract COVID as well. So, thankfully, a lot of them did recover and recoup from that pre-vaccination period. The second time, I did get a chance to go around Crown Point and did check on office personnel. A couple of them do come to mind. The first one was our food distribution program. Thank you to the food distribution program for continuing your services. We had food being distributed from the warehouses and from the warehouse in Crown Point, and I believe throughout the Navajo Nation as well. Mr. Tim Murphy, who is the supervisor there, I did get a chance to speak with him on several occasions and check on him and his team, and realize they were there working. The next group, of course, is our CHRs, our community health representatives. Thank you, CHRs. Ms. Burnett Pine, the Crown Point Service Unit, all those wonderful CHRs that we have at Crown Point and across the Navajo Nation. Thank you for being out there checking on our most vulnerable populations, our elders, our families, high-risk individuals. They know who those families and those individuals are out there. So they were out there in abundance and working as well. The third team that comes to mind is our Daltech team, Division of Aging and Long-Term Support Care Services. I can't say enough about this group as well. I have 6 centers in the 8 chapters that I represent, and I did go to all 6 centers and check on the supervisors, the cooks, on the drivers, and each of them did, continually say that they were in need of PPE. We were able to get them PPE as well as other items. I did do some ride-alongs with them on delivering hot and, of course, congregate meals, checking on elders, as well as delivering hand sanitizer as well during that. This is all pre-vaccination, before the vaccinations came out. So thank you to our Daltech team. Right now, the delegated PS2 in Eastern Agency is Mr. Sean Jim out of Lake Valley. That group, I remember talking to our driver out by Chaco Canyon, doing ride-alongs with them and doing ride-alongs with Mr. Emerson Tooley down at Nahadishkij and Standing Rock, as well as Mr. Taylor Pinto up at Herfano and Naizi as well. So the Daltech teams and across the Navajo Nation, thank you to 88 senior centers that we have on the Navajo Nation. Thank you. Those they were out there as well delivering hot meals and congregate meals to our elders every day. Even though the centers are not open at this time, they were still working out there and delivering these hot meals. And Mr. Can't forget Crown Point Senior Center, our team there too, and all those individuals that worked at the agency level. We also had many of our people working at Division of Social Services in Crown Point as well. They were there doing, of course, having to work on cases, and we can't stop working and protecting our children, our most vulnerable populations. So they were there protecting those as well and working with Navajo Nation law enforcement. The other area, of course, is the HCOC that was based in Window Rock. The Health Command, Dr. Jim led this whole effort. Of course, she's the vital component to the Health Command. All of the individuals that worked within the Health Command, thank you. There was a lot of risk involved. There was a lot of uncertainty involved. All those individuals that worked at the Window Rock level, thank you. Division Community Development, Division of Health. We had a point of distribution at Standing Rock. We had other programs there assisting our chapters. That was special diabetes and health education, as well as the CHRs. So the Windrock folks did a lot in distributing essentials out to the point of distribution. And of course, I cannot forget our chapters. Our chapters were there. All 8 of my chapters were there. Officials, starting with the officials, thank you, Shananta. The administrative teams, the CSCs and the AMS, and most importantly, our PEP workers. We could not have done a lot of this work without our assistance of our PEP workers. Unfortunately, it was some situations were as extreme as having to help dig graves for those that we lost, and that's how far we got with working with our PEPs. And without our PEPs, we could not have gotten a lot of the work that we've done at the local level, at the chapter level. So thank you, PEP workers out of chapters in Osenegi. The purpose of this legislation is to give the 4,000 plus regular employees, plus the temporary employees, plus the PEP workers $1,500 each in recognition of their work during the pandemic. It was a little challenge. It would be a little bit challenging to distinguish, time and of course verification of records. So we just went ahead and just said, let's just do it along the lines of everyone being paid. There was issues related to the special duty and hazard pay that was under the previous the CARES Act, but I don't want to really go into that. That didn't work out as planned. So what I did was just said, let's just go ahead and do it through the UUFB, $1,500 for all the employees as well in recognition for their hard work and dedication to providing these essential services to our Navajo people. Now, why the UUFB? The UUFB provides a one-time funding, of course. It can provide a one-time funding. But what I'm working with the Office of the President, Vice President, and maybe looking at is getting this UUFB request reimbursed through FEMA. So we'll be working on that if the legislation were to succeed and go through this committee, as well as Budget Finance and Navigatia and the Navajo Nation Council. So progress, it's a way to help our employees at this time, recovering as we come out of recovery and we come out of a healing process. I really want to emphasize one thing, Shanant, Health Education Human Services Committee. Our employees are tired. Our employees are worn out. Our morale is down, and it's a huge concern. And I really want to emphasize that because we need to take care of our employees the best that we can. We need to give them every sort of recognition, but every sort of support that we can, whether it's financial, whether it's mental, whether it's health, whether it's spiritual. We got to give them that moral support right now at this time, because it is a critical time, as a lot of them are really worn out. And I've heard this a lot from many of our employees. And, you know, just knowing and reading the comments associated with the legislation as well, I can hear some of that through this comment as well. So I want to give some time over to Ms. Resita Toddy. I do know she does have a comment or two and make a recommendation as well. So I don't know how much time we have, Che.
Thank you. Thank you, Che. Ms. Toddy?
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Ms. Toddy, go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee. Our office did assist with compiling the information for Honorable Delegate Mark Freeland in reference to his legislation that you're hearing right now. The main emphasis was that he wanted to provide some kind of incentive to the Navajo Nation employees, as he indicated. And it is true that our employees the morale is down, and a lot of the employees are still feeling the effects of the COVID. And, you know, we're taking all precautions in most of the departments to make sure that we are practicing the required social distancing, and also wearing our PEPs to make sure that we minimize the virus. So as he indicated, we did compile information for him, and it does include over 4,000 employees, as well as temporary, regular status, temporary, and the chapter employees and the PEP workers. So that's the information that I'd like to provide to you, and I'm recommending that you support this initiative. And I know that in all the oversight committee meetings, most of the committees are thanking their employees, and it has been very difficult for everyone for the past 2 years now. And I know that a lot of employees are still afraid of coming to work, and we're really losing a lot of employees because of their fear of returning to work, and again, just being overworked, and their morale being very low. So those are the comments that I'd like to make. And I thank you all for hearing out this legislation. Thank you.
Honorable Pernell Helona, you've got the floor. So.
Chairman, do we have any more time?
Go ahead, Chiche.
I just want to make one more comment, Chiche, before we conclude. Thank you, Chiche. Ms. Toddy, thank you very much for your comments as well. Che and my committee, my colleagues, just keep in mind a lot of our employees also contracted COVID as well. And I don't want to say we lost some employees, but we did lose some employees. And, you know, it was a very scary time for a lot of us and a lot of uncertainty. There was a lot of risk taken by our employees. And, you know, even at the Windrock level, going down to the chapter level, there was a lot of risk. This legislation seeks to help provide compensation to them and their families and help them recover as well. This legislation helps the 110 chapters definitively, equally, also helping by recognizing 2 PEP workers per chapter. This legislation helps build hopefully some morale as well, and helps our employees and our people recover and recoup with COVID, because it was a very scary time driving when there was no one on the roads during the complete shutdown, when you would see a Navajo Nation law enforcement officers, or when you would see staff at their posts, when you would see staff working, delivering food, when you would see CXRs doing their home visits, getting adequate food and supplies to those most vulnerable populations during that time. It was a very scary situation, and our employees risked a lot. Our employees risked a lot of health, a lot of uncertainty. They basically risked their own lives. And you know, you look at other companies and other private and in the private and public sector right now, and a lot of them are giving incentives for hiring new employees. This is just a way to say thank you and express the gratitude to all of our Navajo Nation employees. So, Ediache, look forward to your responses, your comments and questions, and ask for your considerable and favorable support of this legislation. Thank you, Chantal.
Honorable Halona.
Thank you, Chair, and committee members. Good morning. Thank you very much for giving me this time to speak. And Delegate Freeland, good morning to you too, sir, and thank you for bringing this legislation forward. I think I do have a few problems with this legislation. The biggest problem I have right now is that during the pandemic, even though the Navajo Nation shut down a lot of their offices, all the people that were sent home still got paid. They didn't lose any pay. That's first thing I have wrong with it. The second thing is that many of the employees, as well as Navajo Nation, are receiving $2,000 for a hardship check from the ARPA, and they also received $1,350 from the CARES funding. And then there was also the 60 and over for CARES funding as well that received $340. So I'm not exactly sure what you're looking for as far as to increase the morale, but throwing cash money at the situation is not going to be increasing the morale. It's just going to give them more time off to go spend their money instead of working. I think, you know, I have those situations right now. Nobody paid me any money to stay here and work, and I worked all the way through the system, the program, the morale, as well as the 25th Navajo Nation Council. I've only know of one person who got a hardship check, but I'm not going to reveal that. I'll let them do that on their own. And I just don't think that right now this is the way to go. I do believe that some of the employees out there, like the PEP workers, because they were not permanent employees, they didn't receive anything from the Navajo Nation as far as hardship or any other form of extra pay because they're not permanent employees. I do believe that they do deserve something. How we go about that and decide how many of them are remains to be seen. But I do have those concerns right now as far as trying to just throw money at the situation. I don't believe that's the correct thing to do right now. Thank you, Chair.
Committee members, anybody else?
Chair Wanika?
Sure. So, Honorable Edison Wanika, you have the teleconference floor.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. This legislation is good and the reason why is we all are aware of what our chapters did. They, without question, they were really also at the front line. Case ago, so chapter official nationals and the two chapters that oversee chapter official IEC the need the year other than the year for 8 or twice the chapter official again. I don't know how so there's people that don't have a responsibility or a job within the Navajo Nation. Up just by volunteers, so I remember there was a family that took upon themselves to haul water to the families. They came to my house and asked me, is there anybody that's really needing water? And then I had to go to the headquarters of the emergency management. I called over there, and they were able to give these people names and where people need water and things like that. There were people like that. So, and now what is never it makes them feel good to do that. When we get into a situation when there's an emergency, it's all of us responsibility to get involved, to make a difference for our people. I don't special duty pay, hazard pay no. Especially having to do with the seniors, but a director, they no she out, they say that he did know the nature that he could need you know, never say in the show. So that perhaps know what all he never say in the show. It could all about that now. She won't let a coalition is could I need could all they'll get alone at our need. Could all base of the Baker. There's some that came from the federal government. Other basically I don't hear something like that. Because I say we're doing all we can to help our people. And we're leaving some people out. These are suspected either. When did all hear of the if without the just on that, I needed our agenda. I think I see it then. If we didn't get anything from the federal government and from the Navajo Nation, I would wholeheartedly support this. But thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Winika. Committee members, anybody else?
Chair.
Honorable Paul Begay, you have the teleconference floor.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Delegate Daniel, so Vice Chair Shinala, members of the committee, and other my brother, Honorable Delegate Mark Freeland, for your legislation. I know that there were people out there that really went out of their way to help in this very the devastation that our people went through. About the Hachobag of Deaton net of the Yego. You can't eat Jiggy. Jay, at the Dundee partners and Lepetna has under at home, Dundee, what the chapter house in the house, Hannah, A, the E, you see that. A bot that they see not to say. Chapter officials, the chapter staff, and also the volunteers. Need a volunteer back. Those that just with the goodness of their heart, they went and felt for their people, so they came out. All that we can easily identify we can easily identify who those people are. And I know of a family members, of a bunch of people from the same family came together and they cut wood and they bought a wood splitter, they bought chainsaws. Those people, they need help. No, it was a family operation. I believe I counted at one time 46 courts that they have set apart on the show. And they were not in their own chapter boundaries. They went as far as Black Mesa because they learned of elderly that lived there and needed help. They went as far as Inscription House, out of my boundary, just to help those people out. These people did it on the people that really did the work are at the whole one has under. But the holding has under the people that did the late work, boots on the ground, chapter officials, the chapter staff, and those that were volunteering, like this group of family that I know, a group of family of about 20, they just worked, but they didn't mind that because people needed help. Not only wood, but water. They purchased those 250-gallon containers, and they haul water to these people.
We have to teach it to Navajo tongue, and then when they sit out of that.
Okay. Apologize for that interruption. But anyway, because we see it as council delegates, online chapter and we see those people that are really working. Frontline workers, and these are the true frontline workers down there at home chapters. The Daltech employees. You see, you can feel their love for their elderly. We don't work 8 to 5 after work hours, they really appreciate it. If you can sit down and communicate and just have stories with them. These were the people that did that job, to make our elderly feel like they're loved, somebody cares. Because those are the people I think are frontline workers. The old personnel or bakal, should have also been that oh, you better, but you're Kodalia. I think the true volunteers are out there, and all they want as true volunteers is thank you so much for helping our community. Those are the words that will mean more than giving them money. Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Chair, Honorable Paul Begay. Committee members, anybody else before we turn it back to the sponsor and his agent?
Chair, can I make a couple comments and ask a question?
Cecilia, Honorable Vice Chair Slater, you have the floor.
Thank you, Shania, Chair, and thank you, Shayette. Delegate Freeland, I really appreciate your heart for our people and for our Navajo Nation employees. And I've really been grappling and wrestling with this legislation because I think there's a lot of good intentionality in it, but it raises a lot of memories back from the height of the pandemic. And when we set up the premium pay, hazard pay, special duty pay programs under the CARES Act, and how our committee in particular, the HES committee, tried its best with the programs under our jurisdiction. And because we have subject matter jurisdiction over personnel issues, all Navajo Nation programs, to get what our employees were owed and due. And in too many instances, the paperwork or whatever was not submitted, or it wasn't, or it was submitted and then the controller's office didn't end up processing it in time. It was difficult because there were hard deadlines on the federal side, and then even more aggressive deadlines that were imposed within our own system. And I know of too many instances where the staff were not compensated appropriately for the risks that they took in performing their work on behalf of our citizens. But in addition to that, I think there are some good points raised by my colleagues. And there are a lot of employees that for several months essentially were not working or were working from home. And as a nation, we hadn't developed protocols to do that sort of work from home. And it ended up that a lot of people weren't able to complete their work because of lack of internet access, hardware, software in their homes. And that's not the fault of the employee at all. But I've been trying to think, how could we use this legislation as a vehicle to reform our systems? And I look back and think about how we legislated programs that if the executive branch fulfilled them appropriately, all of our employees should have received compensation and really a form of gratitude for the risks they took and the work that they performed based off of their exposure or potential exposure to the virus. And I haven't been able to come up with that solution yet because I keep coming back to the fact that we set up appropriate programs, we set up appropriate policies, and yet it was not fulfilled. And so here on the back end, we're trying to do right by our employees. We're trying to do right by those who take care of us. But it's almost precedent setting that we would let a failure of the executive branch pave the way for, I would say, not a really well-tailored allocation of resources. Because it's good to provide these, but I think that the logic gets a little muddy. Is it a retention bonus? Is it an expression of gratitude? Is it a way to try and smooth things over because there was a failure in how the paperwork was processed? What precisely is it? I don't want us to say, oh, because we couldn't fulfill things according to the policies and procedures that were set up in the first place, we'll always come back around and create an overly broad program that isn't tailored and isn't the sort of higher level of government that we should be striving for. So those are some of the issues that I'm grappling with when it comes to this legislation. And I'm appreciative that you're working to get this funded as a reimbursement from FEMA. And that's my question. If you could go into further detail or provide some sort of documentation that shows this is an eligible cost for recoupment or reimbursement by the federal government, I think that will assuage a lot of my colleagues who have reservations on making this allocation. But ultimately, you know, to me, while this is good and it will be helpful to a lot of families whose incomes are suppressed because of the compensation scale on the Navajo Nation, who have increasing bills due to inflation, and yet the same level of pay or only a couple percentage points increase from the increase that we approved in last year's budget. You know, they need this funding and our people need it. But it also seems like when management throws the pizza party instead of making a better working environment, instead of improving policies, instead of having appropriate trainings and building that esprit de corps, instead of doing the strategic planning that brings everyone in, that bridges supervisors with department managers, with division directors and the executive branch, and lets everyone know exactly where their place is and what they're building towards and how we're all going to level our nation up. And that's what worries me, is that we think a dollar will always be able to fix what are really fundamental core issues in how we do service delivery here on Navajo. I had one senior center supervisor in Rock Point, Francine, who basically went the entire pandemic working by herself because the Daltech program couldn't hire cooks and drivers to help her out. And, you know, the nation, I think, is gonna lose her from employment. And we as a nation haven't been able to level up to make sure that these critical positions are filled and that our people who work for us feel like they're a part of a team that is doing something great at the level where they feel valued and where they know that their clients feel valued. And that really concerns me. So I know, Delegate Freeland, that your heart is with your people, that your heart is with our employees. But I really want us as a council to meditate and think about how can we ensure that the systems we put in place are actually fulfilled. And that's one of those things about a government. This three-branch government, you have policymakers, you have those who do, and that's the executive branch. They're supposed to perform the work. And you have the judicial branch that's supposed to arbitrate when there are issues, when there's either conflict between the branches or concerns when one is doing something that might not be aligned with exactly how it should be delivered for our Navajo people. So yeah, thank you for taking the time to develop this and put your all into thinking about our people. For me, I think I'm going to support this legislation, but I still want us as a government and as policymakers to think long and hard. What is the best way to get the performance out of the executive branch that we have set when we establish policies and laws? First and foremost, we need to provide that accountability back to our people, because it's dollars in their names. They make up the tribe receives the funding. So thank you, Delegate Freeland. I'll yield my time.
Thank you, Honorable Slater and committee members. Thank you for voicing your stands on this particular legislation. Refer back to sponsor Honorable Mark Freeland and his agent. But Che, you have the teleconference.
All right, can you hear me, Che?
Oh.
Okay, thank you, Che. Resource, resource, I'm with RDC, Health Education and Human Services Committee. Honorable Carl Slater. Thank you very much, for your comments and for your concerns as well. Notably, the ask about getting more documents for the FEMA reimbursement. Right now, we're sitting at 100%, and I'm hoping to get this legislation through so we can get that 100% reimbursement. If it falls to 75 or 50, then that's going to be an issue, of course. But I'll work with Department of Justice to get that clarification on that. I did mention it to the Office of the President and Vice President, so I'm working with them on that as well and getting some more documents together for this for the reimbursement situation. So I do have Dr. Fowler on the line. I know she's probably listening, so I'll work with her as well on getting this document situated, taking care of per your request as well. And I appreciate the point that you made. In regards to Francine, thank you, Francine, at your center. There's many stories and tales as hers as such throughout the Navajo Nation. And she's one of many frontline workers. She's one of many of employees that took risks and took the incentive to help our people out the way that they did. This legislation is, of course, yes, it is a way to retain our people, or retain our employees, but also to help the morale, give the morale a boost. I really want to really emphasize something, Shananta. Our employee morale is really low right now. And I think we all need to take that into consideration. We need to take a good gauge of that. I don't think we've really talked about it. I don't think none of us have discussed it thoroughly, but we really need to give that some thought. What does the employee morale look like right now? That's a very concerning question for us to think about. So I just wanted to mention that as well. In regards to Honorable Halona, this legislation is a response to, and I believe Majay also made this point. This legislation is a response to those that did not receive any special duty or hazard pay whatsoever as well. Some did. Some worked their full time. The full time of the pandemic and only received $100, $200, $300. That's it. Now, I don't want to talk about historically what happened, but a lot of this stopped. And speaking to some of the program managers, supervisors, and even going as high as division directors, all these requests were submitted to the Office of the Controller, where they stopped and they were not approved. So everything was submitted for special duty and hazard pay, but it ended there. And this was during the CARES Act. So just really take that into consideration as well. This is a direct response to those special duty and hazard pay requests that did not even get considered nor get paid. That's why I wanted to have this legislation incentivize that part of the CARES Act, when none of our employees got any special duty or hazard pay whatsoever. I had chapter staff telling me that, I know they were there because I worked alongside them in their cares, during the pandemic. They were there the whole entire time, and they received $100, $200, and they came up to me and said, "This is literally a slap in the face." That's what they told me, and that's really hard to hear coming from an employee who risked everything, who put their life on the line. So it really is a way, it's a mechanism to thank them and give them that gratitude that they solely deserve. Yes. So in direct response to Honorable Halona, yes, it is a mechanism to help incentivize or recoup that situation that didn't happen related to CARES, related to special duty and hazard pay that didn't work out the way we thought it would. Everyone came together, and there's a lot of individuals to thank on this. Office of the Speaker, Ms. Melinda Siako, helped me with this. Thank you, Melinda. Dr. Fowler and Rosita Toddy, thank you. Working with Chief of Staff Chaco, getting everyone together, thank you. Office of Legislative Counsel, thank you. Legislative Counsel had a lot of questions about the idea. What do you want to do? How do you want to do this? How do you want to proceed forward? Whenever you have an idea, you always try to do your best to explain to them. So thank you to Office of Legislative Counsel, because initially what we wanted to do was to set this up in a tier system, but it would be too difficult to distinguish the tier system as far as pay grade, as far as employee, how we would pay employees that way. It would be too difficult to distinguish that as well. Shana, Honorable Paul Begay, Shana, thank you very much. And I wish, all of us could write a book of some sort of the many families and many volunteers that helped during the time of the pandemic. And knowing that there was one of many families that you explained and spoke of. There was a lot of volunteers that came forward and stepped forward. And, it was really something to see and behold during the height of the pandemic. And just as what my other Honorable Edison Winika mentioned, families stepping up, asking how they can help to haul water. And I wish we could come with some sort of documentation. I wish we could create some sort of document of record to say, this is what we went through during this time period for the record, and this is what we did, and how can we capture that? How can we capitalize all of these efforts that were made? It would be too difficult, of course. It'd be too broad. It would be too hard to work on that. Shananta, I just really want to emphasize the morale right now. We really need to think about that. Where does the morale stand for our Navajo Nation employees right now? And that's a very good question. Number two is, did everyone equally deserve or receive CARES Act money and special duty or hazard pay money that they did? Did everyone receive that? That's another question for us to consider. Maybe for us to think about asking our direct chapter management, start with them and see what they received. My chapter administrative teams told me, they let me know. The CSCs and AMS let me know. That's why this is a direct response to their concerns as well. They were out there working. They were out there on the front lines. And then, of course, I really want to, for us to consider that, retention. We don't want to lose any more employees as it is to this point. Some employees have left already. And we don't want to start thinking about having our employees go to other means, other organizations, whether it's in private or public sector, because they're getting incentivized for joining them. And, I just wanted to mention that, Shite. Dr. Fowler's on the phone. If I could give her some time, if I may. Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, yat shache. Aro honorable delegates. Ebedike ehit aro shiaj. Kado sabe donahodit I. Hadin lai. Ado nakadel nishi. Ban sissing kes. Ani o you nakata inish. Akwadin nad nishin lini. Ani. Hot be tradedi katni zini do hot ego. Hot hinanish il be tradi credo be kato be shinch edika. Akwadin hel yehin linigi, the handad nishi bit na hel yehin lini. Ayego ben hitch and nahot in his bahosen. Nakhandal nishi, the queen Khayet dan shidi na hel yehi be in the dot. Hat no she ashi becha otzi aden hitch in alia. Akwaditi na Khayet dan hajo and ordni hat no she, so that she koho. And na is neldo and needy Yahanana Khe. Ado ist yada ako you na handad nishi ato. Ist neta. Be nada dot in Khaled kwati na ilyehido o kwad na helyeda jo salary study beditne. Sato and na nail neho, ben na nail nish. Okoti ani nilje and na hol gigi se kwaja na wheel ne elsa. Dina handad nishi. Ba'ati nido bayeltke. And we have to be genuine. Yisnebelagan like echo. Nakhandal nishi. You got it then, his bahasan. Bedo ha ishi ke esla. Ho wante chiyan ne yija. Hashine lanko. Ho one. Nahaz anko. Altonin hits aunt that dice kid. Okon atko chiyan da. Akodin hel yehi. Hashine lan khandal nishi peso. Bata ni ado kodo arts and craft the pawn shops go da nihit the anana ni halate abakadi lwa. As a division of human resource director, our morale within the Navajo Nation, it is low. And our employees that are listening now is going to recognize the thoughtlessness of the gifts. And I don't want it to have it cause more damages. Ani naten yini doj enna bihi kreani ltfon. Ani kodoshi yaj ya yachti behes ani o you khatadelia. Hashine lan special duty hazard pay bitch in the house ya. Ado hashine lan ado nal tosen lini ado hajo ba kitten data. Ati yasa da hoshon. Okodi kodo na handal nishin lini. Ndisi, how do we plan to do the recovery? This is one way to plan a recovery. Nakhandal nishi, they feel less valued, not only by managers, directors, as a whole, as a nation. The quiz kanya danshin le chin legon saya asahalete. Hajo ban sing kesti del nishi. Do dan hit is anta dan nebedo ko yugo na ilna. So what in a way money does not always boost morale. I understand that. But hot kodo economic beat not need on saho anana te ad it's on that beach that in saho ani. Dik at not the more don't which is can not as the gonna kids at the whole castle. We're going to have 361 employees that's going to retire in May. Kodoshi Yaja Yalti Jojo Josh and Ayosleda Oshina Nishte speak Jo Chaya at Eta Nini O Hayu. And so when we're talking about morale, if we provide this, I know there is so much that needs to be done. We can look at some of the policies, we can look at professional development, but most importantly, we want to build a stronger team. We want to heal, and we want to create employees that can be creative. ape etoni sho njono la shansa kesla at ye go bitski la bi gahat an njono na de deshnish ot an se kesko ilya go shilto njone ado an skone ashi ni eti ni la ado shat edon nene akonda an hi it behes ani shito jo khata del yago eto sato be ndi kasto edilni jo saton hinanish edilni ado kodona de no ke jo na khanda nishi khodan were not priority tanon ni hinda halne akonde khalebe jo an hin na hodni she base pas an no tini kebada eko shido kodo obana idesh kan na khanda nishi Bahani no ya ate bedo o you kodo beje dastel o you da hinil ke ni ke o you ni ta ke da hastil o konde na nishe de ne daho o you oni de ne yon I ko eshin latoni na khaban so kesole shanat ahnoleni but e kodo o bi ado le ko eshaho a even nache jo an hin hiolni to tagodo to ta kodnate na kan se kesi shi khait atna do kosi she e bashin khala khoje o you il kejent aje da khat shahle ko ado da do nene ni hin khandal ni she were dealing a lot with irate customers o you da hashke e shi o ya is the front line but da hones da go yen da ayola da kodobich service il we can deny service because they're irate, but we can't. We got to deal with it. We got to learn how to deal with it. Okot ahibeneka ishi nakaba akanasindole shinat arnohlini ko hiha kwa shada ho aishi yado shiche do pansodole na hiha.
She next to my Yaja Kela Tago, yeah. I know nothing check. We'll turn it back to you.
Yeah, last check or committee members, any follow-up comments?
Chair Slaughter.
Honorable Halona, you have the floor.
Thank you, and Ms. Fowler, thank you for your comments. And I just have a couple of things that I would like to add on to that. Is that morale is a responsibility of the supervisors, as far as I'm concerned right now. They're the ones who have to work with the employees and bring up their morale, and simply because they're responsible for that position. You know, when I was a supervisor and I supervised a large crew, the best thing that I could do for the people and to tell them how good of a job they were producing was to simply say thank you for your help and thank you for your hard work and dedication to the job that you're doing. Yesterday we sat out there and listened to some supervisors that were working for Daltech, and they had a lot of complaints, and basically the complaints was against management. And all they asked for was that at least we could be recognized with a simple thank you for your service, thank you for your hard work.
That's executive session.
So that's what I was, I based my decision on that, is that the supervisor is going to be out there working for their employees, then they're the ones who will be responsible for being keeping the morale up and keeping your program running. And maybe that's what we need to start at, is to create programs to teach our supervisors how to build morale within their employees and keep them working hard so that they would be dedicated to their jobs. I just don't believe in throwing money at the situation. It's not going to help. But right now, I do agree with some of the employees that were employed before the pandemic, during the pandemic, because we had a change in administration with the chapter houses. A lot of the chapter officials were voted out, New ones came in. The ones that were voted out did a lot of work for their communities, as well as the PEP workers, and they didn't get nothing as far as hazard pay or any kind of special duty pay. And so I do speak for those people who don't and who didn't get it, but I just don't believe, like I said, throwing money at the situation is going to help the morale one bit, because you're just going to setting us up for another 3 months down the road. People are going to be asking, well, where's our extra funds that we're getting to having to work here? That's going to be their voice is going to be saying that, well, I'm not getting no extra pay. I'm only going to do what I'm going to do and what I'm getting paid for. And so they're going to be expecting this again later on down the road, and I think we're setting ourselves up for a fall. Now, there's a few other comments that I have to make. Thank you very much, Chair. Back to you.
Thank you, Honorable Halona. Committee members, any more comments, questions, statements? If not, then let's take it to a vote. Mr. Mose.
Yes, sir. Honorable Paul Begay Jr. Honorable Paul Begay Jr. Honorable Pernell Halona. Honorable Pernell Halona votes red. Honorable Carl Russell Slater.
Green.
Honorable Carl Russell Slater votes green. Honorable Charlene So. Honorable Charlene So. Honorable Charlene So votes green via text. Honorable Edison J. Winika.
I'm here, re-election employee.
Red. Honorable Edison J. Winika votes red. Honorable Paul Begay Jr. Honorable Paul Begay Jr. Carry a vote of 2 in favor, 2 opposed. Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Mose, since I'm going to have to vote, I want to make a statement before I before I cast my vote. Number one, I think Dr. Fowler made a statement. Campaign is put on the site, and that troubles me when an administrator says that. It seems like it's all for the campaign and not really to recognize employees. If you read a lot of human resource studies, it's the results of those research and studies say that the recognition, thank you, gratitude, weighs a lot more than the monetary awards, rewards, one to be treated like a human being, to be valued by those interpersonal actions, day-to-day aspects. And I really agree with Vice Chair Slater's perception that there are folks that weren't even considered, most especially chapter service coordinators, account maintenance specialists.
Chair,
and then
sorry for interrupting.
Yes.
I just got a text from Honorable Paul Begay. He votes green. On this legislation 76-22.
Okay, with a vote of 3-2, then, and the chair not voting, but I'll still make the statement. And in that aspect, the certified chapters were never given an opportunity to forward hazard pay, the special duty pay. And it's a failing of the system. And the system basically rests with the Division of Personnel Management. And it's just unbelievable that we're trying to, at this point in time, do these actions. So in that aspect, we'll be proposing an amendment as it moves forward up to BNF, NABI, and to the council. It does. There is a fault in the way the legislation is written. And there is a fault in the way that we have to really be careful. Honorable Mark Freeland, all those people that you named off, now they're expecting a check. In my prior service as a delegate on the 88-member council, even though the delegates had not as well educated as the group of 24, they kept names out of council proceedings and just referred to them as Ngachin and Handal. And that kept it at a way that is way not favoring anybody. And that's one of the things I think as a leader, yes, at recognition ceremonies, and yes, you can honor them when you're talking about legislation and to single out people. And those that are not recognized, those that are not named, they now talk about morale. That's the part that we have to be really careful of. And that's the part that I caution sponsor going forward to be careful on how it's presented. As to name 20 out of 4,000 employees, and that's just not very equitable. I guess this legislation is trying to make it equitable for the folks that served in this time of pandemic. And so those are some, and for me, the volunteer firefighters at Pintado and at Torreon, they went well beyond, and they aren't even on the payroll for the Navajo Nation. So those are some things that we have to, I guess, and I agree with committee members that there's a lot of folks that went beyond what they normally do in their normal days. So going forward, please be cognizant of that. So we'll go on to the next legislation, Ms. Angelita Benali.
Agushi, Hela Shanta, thank you. That's committee.
Okay, Agushi. Miss or Honorable or got all typed up. Mr. Mose, the roll call vote is again review one more time.
For legislation 0076-22, the vote was 3 in favor, 2 opposed.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And let the record reflect the chair did not vote. Ms. Angelita Benali, the next legislation, please.
Mr. Chair and members of the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee, the next one is 6C, legislation number 0077-22, an action relating to the Health, Education, and Human Services and the Navajo Committee, establishing the Navajo Nation Foster Care Awareness Month as a reoccurring event in May to bring awareness to Navajo foster children and increase the need for more Navajo foster parents. Sponsor is Council Delegate Nathaniel Brown. And the legislation does move on to the Navajo Committee after the Health, Education, and Human Services considers it. Mr. Chair?
Thank you, Ms. Benali. Committee members, what are the wishes regarding this legislation? The chair recognizes the motion by Honorable Edison Wanika. Do I hear a second? And we have a second by Honorable Paul Begay. Honorable Nathaniel Brown. Cecilia, are you on the call?
Oh, yeah, I have been Shana, Delegate Brown.
Oh, Cecilia, thank you for bringing this legislation to the HES committee. We'll listen to your presentation. Mainly for public awareness, for all the folks on the call, and then for the committee to really know the intent and purposes of the legislation, even though we've read the legislation. Thank you. Attila, you have the floor. You have an agent.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. Health, Education, and Human Services Committee. Do anak kota isanasangki here. Kwegi side bedan nahdid ahi legislation 0077-22 is a legislation that was brought to us from one of our very own who our relative, Miss Stephanie Benali, who is currently with the employed with the Utah Foster Care. Her work has been amazing in advocating to help our Navajo children. Ayla pata halyando lesti no selebich na ndahti pomado beje hajishi bich ndahti ado pagan aket ndakhi ado aten big ada do yahata bi esta do pahato yahli ayotabo so in the custody, sometimes in the social services in the state of Utah. And so with this legislation, it's recognizing next month, May, as the foster care month. And it's really to promote number one, awareness. The number one reason is to continue to find foster homes and also eventually adoption for not just our Navajo children, but also our Native American children. And this also is really supporting the Indian Child Welfare Act, ICWA. So right now, ICWA, as leadership is aware, ICWA is under attack by the state of Texas and other states. I'm sorry, I'm hearing some background noise. I'm losing my train of thought, but Ms. Benali and her team has been working on promoting to get our children into homes, safe homes. And again, not just any homes, but safe homes, and really with kinship arrangement or placement. And that is again to looking at ICWA and to eventually find homes, permanent homes for our children under the age of 18. Right now, there's not enough foster parents, and there are children out there, not just in the state of Utah, but all over the United States. I know that Department of Justice has been working closely with ICWA and social service in basically rescuing our children and bringing them back to the nation by asserting Navajo jurisdiction off the Navajo Nation in the 50 states in the United States. So, but I will give, if Chair, if you would please allow my agent, Ms. Stephanie Benali, to present. She has been working on this, and Shanand Ashwanda Di Kwegi. Kane di chato bebela dot le kujari kesh alonde nabike tija adeya bella le dole. Again, Chair, if we can allow Ms. Stephanie Benali with Utah Foster Care to present as my agent as well.
Asya sitsalo kudo sabi in lagi do kudo sin iya ayasi alonja thousand to 8,000 amigi ya kunzamigi sin jentotse. Miss Stephanie Benali, you have the teleconference floor.
Good morning. Thank you, Honorable Brown and Chair and Health, Education, Human Service Committee for the opportunity to present today. My name is Stephanie. My clans are Restrict people born for Bitterwater. My maternal grandfather is Mexican people, and my paternal grandfather is Red House. I am the Native American specialist with Utah Foster Care. We are a nonprofit. We recruit, train, and support foster parents across the state. In this job, I've shared the message that we are in a shortage of Native American foster homes, not only in Utah, but across states and in tribal communities. Our message is spread beyond the boundaries of the state of Utah, and it's a message that we continuously share, that there is a need, an urgent need to have more Native American foster homes for our kids in care. When our children are not placed in Native American foster homes, they are placed with a non-Native home. And our children do a lot better when they are placed in their Native community, in Native families. And so, and with this legislation, the hope is to bring awareness that we need more foster homes. We need more Native or Navajo foster homes across the reservation, across the United States, so our children can have that connection to language, to the culture, to ceremony. As I always share with non-natives, culture is not a checklist. We can't just simply take our Navajo child to a powwow, teach them how to make a dream catcher or, and call it good. It's more than that. It's everyday living. At home, I share that we give our kids our cultural teachings about, about what it is to be, like when the treaty came to Window Rock, we traveled to Window Rock for my kids to see the treaty and explained how, as the people, we endured a lot, the long walk, and here we are, we're still strong. And it's those kind of teachings that's really important that can only happen when the child is in a Native or Navajo home. And so that's why this legislation is important to bring that awareness. And I just wanted to share some information that was on the National Indian Child Welfare Association, that cultural identity and ethnic pride results in greater school success, lower alcohol and drug use, and higher social functioning in Navajo children, adolescents, and young adults. So it's not only, there's studies and there's associations that also support Natives being kids in homes. It's beneficial for their welfare, it lowers the rate of depression, alcohol use, antisocial behaviors. And as Delegate Brown had mentioned before, the first placement preference when a child is placed in the care is with family. It is shown that there is less disruption when a child can be placed with family. If that is not an option for whatever reason, then they would go to shelter or to a foster home. And so the hope is to have our kids be placed in a Navajo home. And thank you very much for your time, and thank you for your support for our Navajo children. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Benali. Cecilia, does that conclude your presentation?
Chair, so yes, that completes our presentations.
Committee members. Committee members. Honorable Halona.
Thank you, Chair.
You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Committee members. Thank you, Delegate Brown, for bringing this to the light. I do agree with you. We do need more people out there to do foster care. And I do know there's a lot of children out there who do need the help. And, there's those that do fall between the cracks, and they have made it as well. And so I commend all of those who gone the extra mile to try to help themselves and move forward in their life. But there are those who are younger who don't have that luxury to be able to move forward in their lives. So I agree with you on 100% that we do need to find ways to find more foster care for our children. And especially Navajo foster parents. I mean, it's fairly easy to find foster parents out there in the Anglo world because those people know that they get paid for it, some of the services that they do. And it's extra income to them. But here on the Navajo Nation, it's a little different story. A lot of our people don't have those good jobs. They don't get paid the big wages that the outside world make. But we still need to try to find a way to take care of our kids. And I think this awareness for 1 month is a good way to get the word out there, and that we just need to have more public publicity and have it publicized a lot greater, and we might get a better response. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Halona. Committee members, anybody else? Ms. Benali, have I established a motion in a second? I'm
Mr. Chair?
multitasking at my end.
Yeah, yes,
go ahead.
the motioning party is Delegate Edison Winika, and the second is Delegate Paul Begay. Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'm multitasking. Committee members, any other statements and questions? If not, then let's move forward with a vote. Mr. Mose, roll call vote, please.
Sir. Honorable Paul Begay Jr.
Begay votes green.
Honorable Paul Begay Jr. votes green. Honorable Pernell Halona.
Honorable green.
Honorable Pernell Halona votes green. Honorable Carl Russell Slater votes green via text.
Green.
Honorable, yes, got it, sir. Honorable Charlene So. Honorable Charlene So. Honorable Edison J. Wanika. Green. Honorable Edison J. Wanika votes green. Honorable Charlene So. Chair.
Delegate So voted green via text. She texted us.
Okay, so okay, we have vote, Chair, we have a vote of 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you. As committee members, appreciate the vote and the full support for Honorable Nathaniel Brown's legislation. Let the record show a vote of 5 in favor, 0 opposed, the chair not voting. Thank you. And Cecilia, good work.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Health Education, Human Services. Have a good day, everyone.
With 8 only. Miss Angelita Benali, the next agenda item.
Yes, Mr. Chair and members of the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee. The next item is 6D. It's legislation number 00585. I'm sorry, number 0085-22. And the legislation title is an action relating to Health, Education, and Human Services Committee approving amendments to the Navajo Nation Department of Self-Reliance Pathway to Self-Reliance Policy Manual. And the legislation, the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee is the final authority for this legislation. It has been electronically read into record. It also attached to the legislations are exhibits A, B, C, and D. A being the proposed policy changes, and then exhibit B is the markup version. It indicates where the changes have been made. And exhibit C is the review by the Department of Justice. I believe it's a 168 review process that the executive branch does go through or initiate. 164 review form, yes, that's who had reviewed it. And exhibit D is the final and clean copy with all of the amendments having been excuse me? Also further on in the, Mr. Chair, are you trying to get through the line?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm quietly listening.
Okay, all right, thank you. And also attaches the transmittal letter that indicates and initiates the public comment period, which is and was completed. There were no comments received. Mr. Chair. And the sponsor is Delegate Edison Winika, and I believe his agent is present. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Benali. To committee members, how do you wish to treat this legislation? Motion by Honorable Pernell Halona. Do we have a second?
Delegate Paul Begay.
And second by Honorable Paul Begay. Since it is a matter that where Hess is the final authority, let me give a few minutes to sponsor Honorable Edison Winika and his agent. Cecilia, you have the teleconference floor.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Appreciate this, and members of the committee. There's no target yet. I do have an agent here, Anthony Tene Yazi. Amendment because this amendment has to be done because every 3 years the Navajo Nation prepares and submits a travel family assistance plan. So the proposed amendments for the Pathway to Self-Reliance Policy Manual must be updated to support the changes in the Travel Family Assistance Plan. The amendment in summary, my agency if we have any questions, we can respond to that. Mr. Yazi, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Honorable Delegates, Winika, members here. Anthony Daniel, the India. The government showing on the engineering Mr. Chado can change the Chanel I mentioned. And I'm the senior program and project specialist Farm for Self-Reliance. Facilitated development and what we call a tribal family business plan. Tribal planner program does have to submit a new one every 3 years. So that's what we did. Although along with it, of course, you have to make policy changes. But first, I just want to give you some brief background so you can better understanding of some of these changes that we're proposing. So in 1996, this law called Personal Responsibility Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act of 1996 was signed into law. The Navajo Nation itself, we started operation, our first approved October 1st, 2000. But the reason that this welfare, it's also called welfare reform, and the reason it came about was that Congress saw that the welfare system was not working. The number of individuals that were on welfare was growing. The number of out-of-wedlock pregnancies and births was increasing. A large percentage of absent parents were not providing child support. So there were 4 purposes established for TANF. First one, provide assistance to needy families so children may live at home with relatives. The second one, independence of needy parents on government benefits by promoting job preparation, work, and marriage. Third one, prevent and reduce out-of-wedlock pregnancies. Fourth one, encourage the formation and maintenance of 2-parent families. Although they also established some principles that welfare programs should be designed to help move people from welfare to work. Welfare should be short-term, not a way of life. That parents should receive child care and health. They need to protect their children as they move from welfare to work. Child support programs need to become tougher and more effective in securing support from absent parents. They're not one size fits all. The law does provide a lot of flexibility to tribes to develop their own programs. And they also, in the law, Congress put in that they expect adult customers that are receiving TANF to participate in work activities and also improve their capability to support themselves and their families before their time-limited assistance runs out, and also to make the transition to employment. So with that background, of course, make you aware that and we get a new the Tribal Family Assistance Plan also have to do the policy changes. So for the current one, of course, everybody's aware that we had to get our TFAP approved during the pandemic. Because of that, there was very few changes that were made to that we had in place, understanding that at some point after the approval, because that's what gives us our money, so it's important that we get our TFAP approved. After it was approved, we formed a work group that consisted of the leadership of the program and including the local office supervisor, and working on an amendment to the TFAP. And at the same time also we started identifying what revisions we would need to make to our policy manual to go along with these changes that we're proposing. The whole idea was that we want to enhance and expand services and assistance, better meet the purposes and principles of Canada. Just when we were in the process of finalizing that amendment, we received guidance from our funding agency, the U.S. Department for Health and Human Services, that parents who live with their children must be included in a TANF benefit group. Were circumstances under where we were allowing the exclusion of a parent, but we were told no longer do that. So that delayed the approval of our amendment to the TFAP, and also delayed getting the policy revision drafted and submitted for review, and then of course for approval by this committee. I want to emphasize that all these changes that we are proposing were thoroughly discussed by not only the management of the Department for Self-Reliance, but also the local office supervisors. So with that, there is attached to the legislation a summary of the major proposed changes. There are areas where develop language just to clarify certain things, because it wasn't sort of clear, so just to make it a little bit clearer. We did also move around some things to make it flow better. But the major change, I'll just quickly go over. The document that's titled Major Proposed Changes. First one is just that we put back, these are requirements that we put back. They were part of our program prior, but we put it aside for a while. But now we're putting them back, which is the customer orientation, first one. This is important because we do want our customers to know what the program is all about and their responsibilities and so forth. Also, the TABE, the test of basic education. We're proposing to put that back. Again, that's important because we have to get an idea of where customers are at as far as their basic math, writing, so forth. Also, we put back, we're proposing to back a monthly change report. And this is important because we do need to understand when there are changes in circumstances for the families we serve. During the pandemic, of course, it's sort of hard to communicate, and a lot of times it's difficult to get customers to report changes that may affect eligibility. So we propose to put that back. That's you see that as a customer responsibility. And I'll jump to Section 303 application. So what we are proposing that on the application that we want all the family members listed. And you run into situations where you got a family and there's some separate applications, but we need to know who's all part of the household, so that's something that we're putting there. Of course, I did inform you that we're adding language that parents that reside with their children have to be included in the benefit group. There are some exemptions. And this is based on the guidance we received from our funding agency. 305A, it says that adding, and it wasn't there, but it's always, we needed to verify that somebody in the border towns, or what we call near reservation communities, for that family to qualify, somebody in that household has to be Navajo. So there's the language that we need Indian blood for one of the family members. And moving on, and we've got 305. And 305, so following along on the marked up version, we are looking at 10. So I guess they're just also just clarifying, because we do need to verify part of the law that we can only serve U.S. citizens, or the way we verify that we serve card or identification card. And but sometimes if the names don't match, but we're saying that they need to match, so if they don't match, we're giving the customer's time 180 calendar days. Make proper changes. Seven. I explained that we can no longer exclude an adult from a benefit group if they're living with their children. And we have situations where you have a customer that commits what we call intentional program violation. Fraud, sometimes it's called. So up to this point, we would disqualify the adult, take them out of the benefit group. Today, we're just saying that because of this guidance we received, that we're going to have to disqualify the whole family. This family, we just took the adult out and to serve the kids. Because we can't a benefit group without the adults if they're living the home, even change is happening. We also, 309 talks about that we added some language. We have situations where a parent is out of the home for employment purposes or school purposes. Maybe in the metropolitan area, other than that, they leave their children with it's the grandmother or an aunt or an uncle. But they come back, I mean, they're not out of the home just for work purposes. They're out of the home for sometimes a week, more at a time. But we said that, I mean, they're still residing with their kids, it's just that out of the home for employment purposes, that the parents should apply. They are the ones that are responsible for those children. So, grandma, yeah. That you see there. That's an employee adult benefit group member whose work site is outside of the legal commuting distance and stays near their work site on the day they're scheduled to work. Still saying that they serve. Some of the best, again, 309, same thing. 310. Supplemental criteria. There are 3 sets of criteria. There is what we call financial eligibility criteria. Non-financial. They're a citizen, they have to reside with the SBA, there has to be a minor child, those type of things. Also, we have supplemental criteria that we have, and one of them is related to caretakers. So, situations where a child is removed from the home and placed with relatives, or it could be a non-relative. That's one of the situations where social services would come into play when placing somebody. So then, of course, they make referrals over to us to provide for the financial needs. But we are changing the the requirement, I mean, all along, we did require non-related caretakers to have legal guardianship. Today, we're saying, all caretakers, including those that are related, need to have legal guardianship. But we do provide time, up to 12 months, for that caretaker to establish legal guardianship. There are some criteria they have to actually go in to court and apply and work on getting guardianship. So that's what that talks about. That back, and this is something that was there before. We're putting it back. Again, you have a lot of situations where relatives are applying, but some of them, they aren't really the caretakers. Parents just have them by children. So that's why we're just assuring that they are the actual caretakers. They are actually responsible. And B, and that's page 18 on the marked up version. Relates to the two-parent assistance. And this is one of those where I was talking about that we did allow, even though both parents are in the home, allow parent to exclude themselves. We're saying no, if it's a two-parent, both parents are in the home, they both have to apply. And again, going back to that promoting two-parent families, ensuring that adult customers participation and improve themselves. And this related what DHHS informed us. And we're going back to that. If there's parents, both of them have to apply, and both of them will be subject to requirements, the word participation. Moving on. And some of these are sort of minor, but I'll just hit on the real major ones. It's 318, section 318. On page 31 of the marked up version. We're adding a provision related to incapacitated head of household. Run into situations where a parent becomes incapacitated, ends up in a hospital. Some of them are in a coma, they're in a vegetative state. We didn't have a provision that applies to that. I mean, what do you do? Because the parent is responsible, they applied, I mean, they're the head of household. And what do we do? So we just added a provision for that. Those type of situations, if it's a two-parent family, the spouse, then we can convert that case to one parent. The parent is out of the household. But for one parent, there should be a caretaker, and they would come in and apply on behalf of the children. So we just added that. So that's a new provision just to address those situations so that otherwise we're still on the basis. Only the parents, head household can make those decisions, but in the condition that they're unable to make that decision, we have to have and summary, it talks about customer orientation. I explained that we're putting that back, and because we do need customers to understand the program's all about, their responsibilities, the responsibility of the staff. That's all on it. Moving on to work participation. 05, which starts at 35 of the working copy. Several changes too. Again, this is something that when we the TFAP, our plan, is discussed with the funding agent. Comment that we further explain. So that's really what this is talking about. We have a work activity called public and private sector subsidized employment. That there has to be a limit to it. It should be only for 6 months. For certain circumstances, for 12 months, put them back into that. Next two, they just want to add some lanes and innovate. Second one, we had one that provided support and care to dependent child, but they wanted with special needs added, so we added that. Another one about providing care to immediate relative, they wanted with a verified, they should do it medically verified. Than that. And we had the emergency call academic support aid. Again, we're having discussions with the funding source. 503, I talked about that. Stating the monthly change report, and that's just so that the customers need to get that form so we are aware if there are any changes in their circumstances. If somebody moves in or out of the household, they change their address, their phone number, things like that. So again, just to sure, because we do have to make sure that each customer, each benefit group is eligible each month before we process the payment. So that's just verifying that they're still eligible for a variety of them. Are no changes from month to month, so we don't worry about. They'll just say no change, no change, no change. Done. Then we've got some other benefits that are provided besides the monthly cash assistance that's provided. And then there's also support services, so if they need to participate in activities, they need tools, things like that. We also have some other programs that we have. So we made some changes to those. So we talked about 702 transitional support. We limited to once in a lifetime. Now we're saying that transitional, just a one lump sum payment, but you want to make it that you want to be able to provide transition support up to 3 months following closure, and that's just to help them transition. And the purpose is that we need to make sure to help them in transitioning from welfare to employment. So that's a benefit that's provided to help them make that transition. And we have got non-recurring short-term benefits. Benefit group encounters a crisis situation and provide non-recurring short-term benefits. So let's say a family member, a child ends up in the hospital. I mean, there are expenses. Albuquerque or Phoenix, meals, gas, and $8. So that it was just a one-time, that you get one time in a lifetime, but now we're saying they'll be eligible for every 12 months. They encounter another crisis down the road, I mean, available to them. 704, that's a new one that we're adding, called emergency non-recurring short-term benefits. This one is available, not well, the non-recurring short-term is only available to our customers, those are on the program. Emergency non-recurring, it will be available to individuals that are not on the program. And it's related to a crisis. Say, at this one place is this fire that happened, Flagstaff, available though. So we need to develop the procedures for it. And that was declared an emergency, and that would be available. We were going through a pandemic, so a lot of it's related to that. Should we, and pandemic, I guess if it comes back, another emergency declared, that would be available. So aid that Diversion, we're trying to promote this a little bit more. And diversion is just somebody who just needs a little bit of help. Maybe they lost their job and they need to rather than putting them on monthly system. And this one, we're changing it from once in a lifetime to once in the 12-month period. And we're also increasing the threshold because federal poverty guidelines. So we're saying it was 200, but a day we're going to make more families eligible for that. 802 penalties. Program has to have something in place for individuals that don't comply with our requirements. So we are making the change to this. One thing is just the amount. So currently, there are 4 levels. Currently, it was first level 25%. So somebody doesn't meet work participation, up to 25, and up to 35. The 4th level, it used to be that we would close their case and they'd be ineligible for a period. But I explained that Health and Human Services stated that we cannot take out parents. So changing, we're actually decreasing the first 3 levels. Level 1 from 25 to 20%. 2nd level, goes from 50 to 40. 3rd level, 75 to 60. 4th level, if you rather than close their case and disqualify them, we're changing to 80%. Once they come back to compliance, we'll go back to 100%. But then 803, about intentional program violations. We used to just disqualify the parents and take them out of the benefit group. With guidance, we have to keep them in. So I told you that we're going to, what happens if we disqualify the whole benefit group. But understanding that we don't want to cause too big of a disruption, we're decreasing the time. It used to be 1 year for the first offense. We're reducing that to 6 months. Second offense, they were reduced from 2 years to 1 year. I think those are really the major changes we're proposing. A lot of it is just rewording some things to make it a little bit clearer. Some sections I'm putting in a different section just so that it flows better. So that's a summary, and I'm available for questions. My presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Hiazi, appreciate it. Chair, that concludes our presentation.
To the agent. Committee members, do you have any questions?
One question, Chair.
Oh.
One question, Chair.
Go ahead.
Thank you, committee members. And I just have a question on your policy that you're redoing now. When was the last time when it was updated? Was it, it says down here December 19th or 2019? Was that the last time it was really updated? Or?
Yes. What we are revising is the one that was approved effective December 11, 2019. That's what we're revising.
So some of the changes you revised in here, you went back to the old policy, or it's all new?
So this is the policy, and we're just the one that was approved 2019. We're revising it, adding and making changes to it. So it's not a whole new policy. It's just making changes, revisions to the existing policy.
Great. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Elia.
Committee members, any other comments, questions? So committee members, the 2019 was the first revision that this committee enacted in modifying the policies, and this is the second one in 3 years. So we hope this one has necessary changes to make the program operate in a more efficient and effective manner. But ALA committee members, if there's no other questions or comments, let's take it to a vote. Mr. Mose.
Yes, sir. Honorable Paul Begay Jr. Honorable Paul Begay Jr. votes green. Honorable Pernell Halona.
Honorable green.
Honorable Pernell Halona votes green. Honorable Carl Russell Slater. Honorable Carl Russell Slater. Honorable Charlene So. Honorable Charlene So. Honorable Edson J. Wanika. Green. Honorable Edson J. Wanika votes green. Honorable Carl Russell Slater. Honorable Charlene So. Chair voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you, committee members. I understand Carl, Honorable Vice Chair Slater, has legislation before BNF. As I was reading some of the notes this morning. And so, and then also Honorable Charlene So has intermittent connectivity. So let the record show a vote of 3 in favor, 0 opposed, the chair not voting. Now, the chair, Honorable Vince James, are you on the call?
Yeah, this is this is Delegate James on the line.
Kushila, in the Sunday, not Leia. I'm just kidding you. We're all busy, and sometimes we gotta do our best to make it work. Miss Angelita Benali, please put the next item onto our agenda. 0063-22. Ms. Benali.
Mr. Chair and members of the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee, yes, number 6A that the committee is reverting back to is legislation number 0063-22. An act relating to the Resources and Development, Health, Education, Human Services, Budget and Finance, and Navajo Committees, and to the Navajo Nation Council, approving $1,600,000 out of the CHSN fund to cover the funding shortfall for the Untitled Chapter Senior and Veterans Center project, reapproving the related expenditure plan pursuant to 12 NNC sections 2501 and through 2508. The legislation does go on to the Budget and Finance Committee, and Delegate Vince R. James is the sponsor. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Benali. Committee members, do I hear a motion in a second? Going once, committee members, motion, second. Going twice. Committee members. Committee members, may I remind you that no matter what occurs, this legislation moves on to the next committee. Can you hear me, Ms. Benali, Mr. Mose?
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
We can hear you.
Okay. Committee members, may I remind you that this money would help finish a project for veterans and that particular group of organizations, as well as the administration, are under the oversight of the Health, Education, Human Services Committee. Could I have a motion?
Second, that would be good.
Thank you. I'll recognize the motion by Honorable Edison Wanika, second by Honorable Paul Begay. The Chair, can you please give us a overview and a summary on the intent and purposes of this legislation?
Ikehatan Shache, Ado Kodotan Shahwin Aigi, D Kodotan legislation Hitatos of Tozigi 0063-22. Ikeha Beke no Ajigi, Edison Wanika and Paul Begay Ikeha Kodotan Beke no Aj, Okodi Kodo legislation. Nalsos Bedoke Bedanahudid Ahigi E Yad look on Tkid Aje Ace Latso because Anje Do has twin Hazani Tweedo Sani dan Linigi because Anje Aje Bekin E Ya based on that and a John Date that upon the engineering the construction ya aje ba da hodol jisho upon the whole jishin de pandemic diki ya nihinest asli ako jo ado supplies keep in the contractors keep bid up in the at the end it was based off the material listing do ben beitahodon nehigi so the prices of the materials have increased. So we ended up coming into this scenario of being shortfall to move forward with this construction ready project for our veterans in Ganado and the surrounding community. And that goes for our senior citizens within Ganado and the surrounding area as well. We're just trying to locate the additional 1.6 million as a shortfall. This is not to make it a bigger building. It's not to add on additional thing. It's regarding what we do. It's the same exact square footage of the facility, but it's just the material prices have increased to move forward, and no contractor wants to sign an agreement or move forward until this funding is identified and ordering and all of that can can take place. In his kid, and it's probably the case for many of our other construction ready projects throughout the Navajo Nation. O hayud hashi nihisalatso each des ind ko nana pastuido san dan linito aj des inde ko ayet atwini zin o just the hana nachnihin hit hanni ko nasto shas twido sazani saadani ko naso la do dil la ado la do di before I croak sene naso do is connected is hasisti naso don de nahoj ana shada da no hot ya hada zini salat so do hanana ko date art ko ba art ko salat so khida bil oka da jo art hin pa honit nahota ganado rodeo ground 8 dot because along 264 quite along the 264 east of Ganado 8 dot office quite neat and so we're just trying to look for those additional funds to move forward to get the building up for our veterans and our senior center. So quite in Hikado for a benia in Hitchinit baseball sa an kliniki po adona sos liniki hitato ni sozito art ende ebaka nana the cost share of the projects to akoko do Navajo Nation Council yata ako the quigo sheet ya beso hita has soko ya hot kin liniki benit lenko ako si hasemba beso jo adon unique. If you look at Exhibit A of the legislation, baka adon nana kododam asa UUSB do do beso datsi to hot acho nana the chapters 100 millions to the delegates, which is anada Honorable Alton Joe Shepherd. He divided the amount that he received among the 5 chapters. So when he divided those funds, it gave each of the 5 chapters, each chapter $833,333. What Ganado chapter had done was put the whole amount of that funds that was received at that time towards this project as well. What is needed to get the 1.6. We even went down to the state link that it was part of the Regina Cobb and Speaker Bowers down at the House of Representatives budget as well, 2-8 last year. So the question she na hikizo do the question she no kote na ho jisne ko hot out ni hitna has neto ha la na sos no kliniki agenda gin hapos ko I don't know what it arts what the baka under the Exhibit A, the bidding process, the whole how many contractors of the biddings that were submitted, the proposals that were submitted, in this legislation. Mr. Andy Thomas, he'll be my agent. And I apologize for not being on the call earlier. Liquid Twin Arrows, the AARJ Council Delegate Vince James Chapter Club C mini conference. But no, all the chapters are here. Lunch you guys are on the speaker. I have the mic to the phone just to inform them of how we do our daily communication, our daily reports to the different committees at the council level. I have Cornfields chapter here, Ganado chapter here, Jedito chapter here, Kitlichi chapter here, and Steamboat chapter. And that consists of the chapter officials, the chapter staff, and chapter Club C members. And we do have some chapter other community members attending our conference yesterday, and today is the last day. And then they'll be listening in while we are getting our lunch served. That will conclude my presentation on behalf of legislation 00632, the HESI committee. Thank you.
Committee members, questions, comments? Okay, thank you. Committee members, thank you for what you do for doing a unique project combining senior citizen services and veteran services through this project. Yeah, Mr. Mose, roll call vote, please.
Yes, sir. Honorable Paul Begay Jr. Honorable Paul Begay Jr. Honorable Pernell Halona. Honorable Pernell Halona votes red. Honorable Carl Russell Slater. Honorable Carl Russell Slater. Honorable Charlene So. Honorable Charlene So. Honorable Edison J. Wanika. Green. Honorable Edison J. Wanika votes green. Honorable Paul Begay Jr. Honorable Paul Begay Jr. votes green. Chair, a vote of 2 in favor, 1 opposed.
Thank you, committee members. Otto Che, thank you for voting green. That way I don't have to vote. Oh, the Schnell would have.
Oh, thank you, Che. Thank you, you guys. Thank you, HESI committee.
Otto committee members, appreciate that vote, and we send it on to the next committee. With that, Miss Angelita Benali, please review with the committee what is next on our agenda.
Mr. Chair, you have E, you completed
Ms. Benali, momentarily, Mr. Mose, let the record show that Honorable Carl Slater voted green by text.
Okay,
changes
sir. 4-0, sir. 4-0.
4-1.
All right, my bad. I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong one. 4-1.
3-1.
3-1.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Miss Angelita Benali.
Mr. Chair, according to the agenda, you're on 6E, which is to schedule a work session, and it's with the Department of Personnel Management Background Investigations, and that was from recommended from the April 14th our 13th meeting. Mr. Chair?
Committee members, look at your calendar. Mr. Mose, one more time. Miss Honorable Charlene So votes green on that last legislation.
0063, all right, sir. So the vote will be
4-1.
4-1, 4 in favor, 0 opposed. 4 in favor, 1 opposed.
Thank you, committee members. Let the record show a vote of 4 in favor, 1 opposed, and the chair not voting. Committee members, we are, our agendas, our schedules are really starting to pack up. Perhaps May 10? With a work session starting at 9 a.m. Look at your calendars. Now we do have a BNF. We had a request, the BNF, to do a joint work session on the Division of Social Services contracts and grants, where there was a lot of money being returned. And I saw a email from Miss Peggy Nakai. And we could offer May 10th to combine 2 work sessions. One with the background and checks in the morning, possibly 9 to noon if necessary. And then the afternoon, BNF. I don't know if that's a regular meeting day for the BNF. Committee members.
Chair, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Honorable Slater.
Thank you. So you're looking for proposed dates to have the joint work session?
Yes.
And I think she said that the Budget and Finance Committee convenes on the 1st and 3rd Tuesdays of the month. Ms. Manali, is that right?
So I can go ask, but I don't.
Peggy said, yeah, the 1st and 3rd Tuesdays of each month.
Okay, so the 10th would be open.
Yeah, I would support the 10th.
Okay, great. So then, committee members, we would look at the morning work session with BPM on the background check. And then, and that would also include DOTI and the election administration. Then, and if necessary, BIE. But I think we've got the letter from BIE that really clarifies that if a tribe has a policy, BIE will abide by that tribal policy. Was the newest one. So let's, committee members, let's look at perhaps 9 a.m. to 11 or noon for that work session, then the afternoon 1 to whatever time on the Division of Social Services contracts and grants.
Chair, should we have a backup date just in case? And if so, we just spoke about the 16th here in the committee room.
Oh gosh, my calendar is just booked.
Do you have an alternative backup date?
Thursday?
Well, that would be Nabi.
Yeah, the 12th would be the Nabi also.
I think that's also the Navajo Prep anniversary thing that we
Oh,
approved.
yes, yes. Unless we go way down to the 17th.
But that would be their regular meeting day.
Yeah.
Well, let's do the 10th and then hear back from them.
Okay.
We'll know next Tuesday.
Yep. Okay, so we could have a motion to do the session and
Motion. Monica.
Okay.
okay, we have a motion by Honorable Edison Wadika and a second by Halona. Then, okay, we're good. Did you, Honorable Slater, did you want to do that Navajo Prep in as a special function up there?
Together?
Yeah. That sounds in the morning and in the afternoon.
Chair, Ms. Bernard, did we approve Navajo Prep yesterday? Right?
Was last week? Yeah.
Yeah.
It was on the agenda.
So, Chair, I think we already approved supporting and attending that on the 12th.
Okay, great. Pushing. Then, again, the committee's invited to the Dene College commencement on May 6th at Dene College. And then NTU's commencement is on the 13th. As far as, go ahead.
I got May 6th as Dene College, and was there another date that you were announcing another graduation?
NTU?
Okay, what date is that?
May 13th.
Oh.
32.
Is that already? Yeah, we gotta do that one.
Okay, the other is, let's take care of those two dates and then we'll come back Do we have a motion and a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair, we have 5 ayes on the work session. Didn't get a vote
Okay.
from. So, 4 in favor. 4 in favor, 0 opposed.
Okay, great. That was by a show of hands. Let the record show it was by a show of hands. And then just list the ones that voted in favor. A work session with 8 p.m. in the morning and afternoon. I guess they call it a leadership meeting with BNF. The afternoon of May 10th, starting at 1 p.m. Let the record show a vote of 5 in favor. No, 4 in favor.
4 in favor.
0 opposed, and the chair not voting. Okay, with that out of the way, yesterday we also approved a special meeting on May 4th. I just want you to, committee members, the morning we will meet with the president of the Gallup McKinley County Schools. Available will be, of course, Ms. Bob Roth and Mr. Beta, as well as Leonard Gorman, and we'll try for in person. And that venue we haven't secured, and I'm hoping NTU lets us use that same room that we usually use close to the Culinary Arts Building. And committee members, Tommy Sosi, are you on the call?
Good afternoon, Chairman. Yes, I'm on the call.
Hey, Sache, please review that request from the folks that are working with Speaker Damon.
Okay, well, we received a request from some constituents regarding the school reapportionment plan, and they wanted to meet with HES committee on the same day, or anytime next week whenever you're available. I did reach out to Chief Counsel Dana Barbara, and she said as long as there is no legal counsel, the legal counsel is not available, HES can meet with them. But also we have to be very careful about what information is provided.
Committee members, the constituents that basically place that request to Speaker is the administration from just now at Ditley School. And I'm assuming that it will be the named plaintiff and members of his school board and administration that wants to meet with the HES committee. And so for myself, I'm okay with it. As long as we're all okay with it.
Chair, was there a suggested date there? I didn't catch that.
May 4th, the afternoon of May 4th. Morning session would be with Gallup McKinley County School Board. president, Mr. Charles Long.
Would this be an official meeting?
Yesterday we voted on a special meeting, but then we could recess or adjourn to talk to the plaintiff organization.
Okay, that was that's what I was trying to seek clarification on, was whether the meeting with Zifna Disney would be, which it seems like from legal counsel that would not be the appropriate way to go about this, because we're, they're suing us, I guess.
Well, let me. Let's see. Okay, the email from Ms. Barbara basically says that, as Vice Chair Slater stated, the matter is in active litigation. Some of the constituents, quote unquote, are plaintiffs in the litigation. While legal reviews prohibit defense counsel, DOJ, and Office of Legislative Counsel from meeting with the plaintiffs without their own legal counsel present, legal rules do not prohibit the plaintiffs and the defendants, as though the counsel of the Navajo Nation, from meeting amongst themselves without lawyers present. And in short, Hess without DOJ or OLC could meet with the constituents, quote unquote, without running afoul of legal matters. However, anything said at such a meeting can be used in the litigation. Therefore, if Hess does decide to go forth with such a meeting, I strongly advise the Hess members to be very careful as to what they say. Please let me know if you have additional information or analysis. Perhaps we could listen to what they have to say. Committee members.
Chair, I support that. I just don't think it should be an official meeting, but we would just be meeting with them as constituents and elected officials. So I'm happy for you or whomever to organize that in the afternoon, and I'll make myself available then.
Okay. Committee members, I really would like to make this a face-to-face meeting. And okay, since we voted yesterday to make it a special meeting, on the agenda, I got word that the St. Michael's Association for Special Education is closing its doors on August 14th. About 14 clients will be left without services. Miss Paula Sinez gave me that highlight, and she contacted the director, and the director I'd like to put him on the agenda. So the morning session will be a special meeting with Charles Long, and then the special education. Then we will adjourn, and after that, then we can meet with the Disney group, the quote unquote constituent group. we'll proceed in that manner. And I really ask all members of the committee to be present. And of course, whoever speaker delegates, probably Mr. Sosi and perhaps himself. Okay, so that'll be the order of the day for the 4th. Any questions, comments? If not, then
Motion to adjourn?
we go to old business, there being none. E, close of meeting, announcements, adjournment. We've got the planning session over at the John Pinto Library on Friday. Again, like to see you there. Lunch will be provided by the college. And we'll also tour the building where we had the groundbreaking. Committee members. With that, chair's open for motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Okay, I didn't quite hear who made the motion.
That was a Paul Begay motion.
Okay, Paul Begay, Honorable Paul Begay makes the motion to adjourn. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Honorable Carl Slater. Okay, so we're roll call vote, Mr. Mose.
Yes, sir. Honorable Paul Begay Jr.
Oh, great.
Honorable Paul Begay Jr. votes green.
Later.
Honorable Pernell Halona.
One more.
Honorable Pernell Halona votes green. Honorable Carl Russell Slater.
Green.
Honorable Carl Russell Slater votes green. Honorable Charlene So.
I vote green.
Honorable Charlene So votes green. Honorable Edison J. Wanika. Green. Honorable Edison J. Wanika votes green. Chair, a vote of 5 in favor, 0 opposed, adjourned at 1:23 p.m.
Thank you. Thank you, committee members. Have a safe day. Travel safe. We appreciate the attendance of the committee. We are adjourned.
Chair, the time is 1:19. I'm sorry, 1:19.
Okay, a vote of 5 in favor, 0 opposed. The chair not voting. We are adjourned.
Yes, sir.
I know. Look on that.